quarter-of-a-million-mile battle bus soldiers on, and owing to the demise of another car in the household, it's now become our main family car. So the fact that it doesn't lock is a bit of a problem. In fact, it does lock. You can use the close-up like so. As you hear, it's also got the bouncing lock problem, but basically the central locking does work, but only using this infrared locally. If you try and use the more distant infrared, the more distant radio signal, it doesn't work. A little bit of research on the internet suggests that there are three possible problems. One is the key itself, of course, and obviously you need to make sure you've got a decent battery, but I've actually recently had a new key made for this car because I only bought it with one key, and at the time it was made the guy checked that the key was actually sending a radio signal, and I believe you can do the same thing by tuning a radio to the, if you've got an old-fashioned radio you tune to the medium wave and you can actually hear the interference. So I'm told I couldn't get it to work, but I believe that's the story. The second most likely problem is in the fuse area, where apparently fuse number 6 or number 7 that powers the aerial antenna and the horn siren, or rather the alarm siren, fuse 6 or fuse 7, 7.5 amp fuse in there, is likely to go, and the third problem is the aerial antenna itself, which can also fail. People have had success. So I made the mistake of listening to all this, and rather than doing the job twice, I thought I would just get an aerial antenna replacement to start with. That's after I check the fuse, of course. So more on that later. So I'm going to start by taking the cover off. Underneath the cover is some more covering, and in here the fuses and DVD drive for the navigation, which is slightly out of date these days. So just hold the cover out of the way, and we'll check the fuse just for the sake of it. The fuse in question is 7.5 amp fuse there, and I've put a meter across it and it's okay. So with the meter on continuity, such that when you touch these probes it beeps, we go across the fuse, which on this type of fuse you can do from outside, and there we've got continuity. The other thing we can do is put the meter on volts, find an earth, stay there, check the voltage on one side, and you can see on the meter, I hope. So you can see we've got 12.5 volts on one side and 12.5 volts on the other side, so the fuse is definitely okay. So now the next stage is to get a look at the aerial amplifier, which is also the receiver for the radio signal from the key, and the aerial amplifier lives behind this panel, and it amplifies the signal from the wires in the rear side screen. And to do that we're going to need to take these two torque screws out, and what should be 3 torque screws down here, but this being an old car is actually only 2. They're slightly bigger torque screws. So we'll start off by removing the seat, which when you get into a vertical position should lift straight out, like so. These larger screws are a Torx 30, and the smaller screws are Torx 25, but in fact as long as the 30s aren't too tight then you can just use 25s for both, which is what I'm going to do. Once the Torx screws are out you can pull this upper panel out. There's a clip that releases. Work it past, and then it will come out from there, which gives access to this panel, which again is held on by various clips, and you just have to be careful and work it out. And you'll find that the aerial amplifier is up there. We'll get a better look at that in a minute. Up on the aerial amplifier there are some contacts there which are basically the power supply to it. And then there's a set of plugs over there, which is where it picks up the signal from the radio, from the window. And then there's a supply that goes forward to the audio. So we're going to take these out. The fire is held in by that one 10mm nut there. And finally there it is. The fact that it's got these markings on suggests it's been replaced before, so this is presumably a breaker's yard one. So if I show you the one I bought ahead of time before taking this apart, thinking it's bound to be the amplifier, you'll see a slight mistake, and that mistake is that this one, although it's marked a 211, it's a W211 and not an S211, which is what the estate is. And so it's a different, for the saloon, it's a different amplifier from the estate. Okay, I thought I would get the correct part, which I did, and these are only about £25 on eBay, so they're not a lot. Most of them seem to come from Lithuania for some reason. I don't know if they break a lot of Mercs in Lithuania. But I fitted this replacement part and still had no working central locking, so I needed to investigate further. Looking at the power supply to the amplifier, 3 wires, a red one, a yellow and sort of bluish stripish thing, and the one in the middle which is blue and yellow I suppose. So we're going to check those with the meter and see what's going on there. It turns out that we've got about 11.5 volts on the 2 stripy wires, and we've got nothing on the red wire, which seems suspicious. Now that wire joins a loom that goes down the back of the car and comes out there and then goes round the back of the electrical unit here, so we need to trace that. So that wire goes into somewhere behind that 7.5 amp fuse and And to get at that we need to remove the cage that holds the navigation equipment, which looks a mystifying task, but in fact you only have to remove that one bolt down there, bolt, and then the thing pivots round and then can lift off. So having removed that one bolt, and this whole unit spins round and then can be lifted off the supports like so. So I've just laid that to one side. This box here I believe is the parking sensor computer, and judging by the markings from a scrapyard on there, then this has also been replaced on this car. But around here, in what I believe is called the rear SAM, signal acquisition module, is a mass of wires coming from the fuse boxes, but the one we're interested in is the 7.5 amp fuse number 8, it turns out to be the one here. No, sorry, the one there. And behind it is some connectors, which are the ones we're interested in. So behind this, which is the main supply, is this green plug, which the colours of the cables on here are the same as going up to the amplifier. So this is the plug we're interested in. So I've put a meter on these 3 wires coming out of here, continuity meter going up to the plug to the amplifier, and sure enough the red one is not continuous, the other 2 are. So the next stage is where it gets interesting, because I've seen another YouTuber use one of these, which I have never used before, which is an automotive short and open circuit finder. And basically this box injects a signal into the cable, and then this receiver picks up the signal, and so in theory you can trace the cable, and if we're lucky we'll be able to even find out where the break in the cable is. So that's what we're going to try now. Okay, so now we're injecting a signal into that supply line to the amplifier, and we can follow it along. There's a point at which it becomes quite weak. So I'm going to take this covering off the harness and have a look. And would you believe it? There's a join here, very bodged looking join, and corroded wires. What can you say? It's just corrosion. Far from Mercedes' finest hour, I would say. Last another 20 years, I would hope. It's really a surprising way of joining wires inside the loom that looks like it's destined for disaster. I guess after 20 years that's what happens. Now the test. Wonderful.